First story that I've got for you guys today, the latest physique update from Terrence Ruffin, aka Ruff Diesel, at about 3 weeks out from the 2022 Arnold Classic in Columbus, Ohio. So I've been very impressed by Terrence lately, and I'll tell you guys why. If you guys remember last year, when Terrence was a few weeks out, I forget how many weeks it was, if it was 5, 6, 4, whatever it was, when Terrence dropped that first physique update, and we were talking about, the conversation became how quickly can Terrence turn things around before the show, because a lot of people, including myself, felt like he looked off. And he was able to pretty rapidly transform his physique to the point where he won last year's Arnold Classic, and he was still runner-up at the Olympia. This time around, at weeks away from the competition, Terrence looks almost ahead of schedule. And I think he looks miles ahead of where he looked at weeks out from last year's Arnold Classic. So I want to make sure we point that out, that this time around, he looks better than last time, but last time he still won. So what does that mean for this competition? Well, for one, look at his quads. I remember one thing that we were talking about in the physique update last year, that the quad separation didn't look as good in those updates last year, didn't look as deep as, you know, some of the updates we were seeing from Chris at the same time, but Chris wasn't doing the Arnold, so he was further out than Terrence from the stage. But Chris had this crazy deep separation in his quads already, Chris Bumstead. In this update, at a few weeks out from the Arnold, crazy separation, crazy detail in his legs. He looks insane. So we really got to give props where props are due, because I think Terrence is going to demolish this show. And he even says in his caption of this update that he feels more tired during this prep, or he hasn't felt this tired during a prep since 2018. So that could be also evidence that he might be working even harder than he's ever worked for this prep. And that's why he looks so far ahead of schedule compared to last year. And I'm confident that we're going to see maybe the best version of Terrence that we've seen up until this point at the Arnold Classic. He's got to be hungrier than ever. 2 years in a row, runner-up at the Olympia. Arnold Classic champion. He's got Breon in this lineup, who he's beaten at both the past 2 years Olympia. So Breon has been third back-to-back behind Terrence 2 years in a row. So history would suggest that history will repeat itself or triple itself, and Terrence would beat Breon here. But let's look at Breon's latest physique update, this posing video, because one of the things that both Breon and Terrence are really good at is displaying their physiques. Terrence, I would argue, is a better poser than Breon, but Breon is certainly no slouch. These guys know how to pose to their strength. They know how to pose to classic physique. They know how to show the physique in a way like they would have 40 years ago in the 70s. But they also know how to do that and do it to the strengths of their physique. And I think everything that we've seen from Breon up until this point suggests that he is planning on giving Terrence a run for his money. And to the point where we've talked about guys like Ramon, guys like Kalsinski, 4th and 5th at the Olympia respectively. But the more that I see from Breon, the more that I think this is going to be between Breon and Terrence. I still think Ramon could be in that conversation, the top 3 conversation. But Breon is still a former Mr. Olympia. Breon is the only other Arnold Classic title holder in that lineup besides Terrence Ruffin. On paper, he's really the best bodybuilder in that lineup off of accolades alone. You know, Terrence recently has beaten him back-to-back, like I said. But there's only one Mr. Olympia in this classic physique lineup, and that is Breon Ainsley. So for a guy like Ramon or a guy like to come in and beat Breon, I would think that Breon would have to be tremendously off. But judging by the updates that we've seen from Breon, I don't think that's going to be the case. So if Breon is on, I think they're going to have a hard time beating him. Now, that being said, I don't think Terrence will have a hard time beating him, because Terrence has already beaten him twice.
Opa, você tá curtindo esse vídeo, hein? Cara, eu também gosto muito de trazer esses vídeos pra vocês. Porém, esses vídeos legendados ocupam muito do meu tempo e são bem trabalhosos pra fazer, cara. Ainda mais que nesse momento eu tô tendo que fazer os meus vídeos pelo celular, então tá sendo uma complicação aqui. Por conta disso, eu acionei a ferramenta Seja Membro aqui do canal. Com ela, você pode me ajudar com um pequeno custo pra realmente manter esse canal vivo aqui. Se você realmente gosta desses vídeos e quer manter esse canal vivo, quer que eu poste cada vez mais conteúdo e com mais qualidade, eu peço que você se inscreva no Seja Membro do canal. Inclusive os membros do canal vão poder pedir vídeos exclusivos e vai ter acesso antecipado a todos os vídeos do canal. E eu agradeço desde já a todos que forem colaborar com essa ideia. Muito obrigado e é isso aí.